most common question starting CrossFit is, how can I get my first pull-up? This is the answer. Introducing the Sentinel Training Strict Pull-Up Program. Gymnastic movement is a prerequisite to weightlifting in sport. Improving your gymnastic strength will increase your fitness across the board, and we can help you. For a one-time payment, you'll receive a 12-week program consisting of 3 accessory sessions per week designed to develop the upper body pulling strength requisite to performing strict pull-ups. The focus will be on 3 different themes each week: full range of motion contractions, isometric contractions, eccentric contractions. It all works the goal of a strict pull-up firmly at its core. This works. Sign up today. Thank us in 12 weeks, just like Louisa did.
You can go to trainsentinel.com and you can get that. And there's a conditioning ebook coming soon. I know you're like, it's just an opportunity for you to assess the competition, but still.
Oh, fuck it. I already signed. I just signed up for it. That was great.
You can also go to there's a link down below and you can order some Spade. And if you use Spade CPW, they'll know I sent you. And it's great. There's like nothing in it. I mean, there's stuff in it, but there's nothing in it. There's like magnesium, potassium, water, natural flavors, stevia. It's just ace. You can go to that link that's down there, bit.ly/TDCO. And that will bring you to the Defiant Co, who have been great supporters of the show. They've made these t-shirts. I don't know if I'll be able to show you. These t-shirts, good stuff t-shirts, still on sale.
Oh, I like that.
You can buy them on Vindicate as well. Last week I said that Travis told me he sold one. Now he tells me he sold none because that person cancelled their order. No, I'm joking. I don't know. Hopefully he sold another couple. Frog grips, just the best grips around. They make tape as well. Look this. Look how shiny this box is. Look at that. It's so unnecessarily shiny.
Just get it just for the box.
Yeah.
That's a cool box.
Beyond the Whiteboard, if you want to track your workouts. Go out if you want to improve your mobility. They have an insane deal on at the minute. It's like 35% off until it's either Friday or Monday for your year's subscription. And it's, I mean, that's basically half. Basically.
Just about.
Yeah. I teach maths, so I'd know. But yeah, you have, so when you go on, you can input what workout you've done or what workout you're about to do. You can input the movements and it will give you specific movements to do in order to prime yourself or recover yourself from those movements. Or you can just say, hey, my hips are really shitty, and it'll endeavor to fix your hips. And Perform Nutrition have jumped on recently. Now, Justin, I have a job for you. So a couple of weeks ago, Perform Nutrition contacted me and said, hey, why don't we give an affiliate a stand of Perform Nutrition products that they can do with as they please. So it's about $700 worth of nutrition supplements, and it's up to that gym. Then they can say to their like clients or members or whatever, hey, why don't you come and try some of this stuff after you've done your workout? You can grab some protein before you do your workout. You can have some pre-workout, take some like cod liver oil tablets or whatever, and drink some coffee so they're repeating you for all day. Or they can sell it, and then they're 700 quid in the green, which is great. So what I need you to do, the last couple of weeks, people have been commenting the name of either their gym or the gym they go to on videos that have been up on YouTube. So I need you to pick a number. So I want you to pick a number between 1 and 45, including 1 and 45 inclusive. And then whatever gym that is going to be the one that gets the stuff.
Number 9.
Boundary, Lisburn. So CrossFit Boundary in Lisburn. I'm going to contact them.
There we go.
I do. I'll just delete all the rest, and then I'll leave that one. I don't remember. So they've
just made 44 other gyms hate me.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. So I'll contact Boundary. I was actually in Belfast at the weekend, and I went looking for CrossFit. There's a CrossFit Boundary in Belfast, and I went looking for it, and I drove past it and drove into a real unionist area, like British flags everywhere. And I was in a car with an Irish reg. And even though hasn't been bad in like whatever 15, 20 years. I was still like, oh fuck. But it was fine. I got a coffee. I never found the gym, but I got a coffee.
Okay.
How you were at Rogue and then you got sick on your way home from Rogue?
Yeah, I got COVID on the way home. I didn't even know COVID was still a thing, but I caught it. Yeah. It's crazy. So I went to Dubai a couple of years ago, came back on the way back, got COVID, and then went to Rogue on the way back, got COVID. Yeah.
How does that present itself? Like what did you feel like?
Like bad flu. I woke up with like 100 and almost close to 104 fever, Fahrenheit, obviously. Do you know what that is? You know what that means?
No, but I can guess it's high.
Yeah, it's really fucking high.
104. Yeah, that sounds like about 40.
I'll tell you right now. 104 Fahrenheit to Celsius was 40. Yeah. Yes. So it was 40. Nice job, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had for about 2 days, I had that, and then it started to then it got a little bit better, and then it kind of transitioned into a pretty bad like head cold. That's all.
Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe that's what I had. Cold. The more you describe it, the more I'm like, oh, shit, that actually sounds really familiar. I thought I just had like some kind of sinus infection. There was like about a week and a half ago, 2 of my youngest had croup and they like ran antibiotics and stuff. Then I started feeling sick and I told myself, oh, it's probably just, that's how it's presenting for me because I'm immune to croup or whatever. So it's just give me this other thing. But yeah, I had like a wicked bad fever and I never really get fevers, but wicked bad fever. My wife said I was basically comatose for the whole night, but from my perspective, I was like flapping around, like couldn't get comfortable, all that kind of stuff. And then I'd say for about 6 days, my sinuses were just fucked, like absolutely fucked. But they're kind of better now. They're more or less better. I was up with Lucy McGonigal at the weekend. I was doing burpees and I was doing like burpees over line and I kept turning the same way. And I only realized after like, I don't know, 10 or 12 reps that I was like, oh, I'm spinning in a circle basically because I'm just constantly going the same direction. And I stood up. It was like an EMOM and I stood up at the end of the second minute and very almost just collapsed back. So where like I think the fluid in my head was still spinning around or something. It was really fucked up. Yeah. So you're better now though, right? You're like on the mend.
I feel like 90%, still like a little head coldy and stuff, but yeah, much better, man. It was, it knocked me on my ass for a couple of days afterwards. I'm always tired after those events anyway, and obviously the travel getting back from Scotland was challenging. I had to take 3 flights, so that was tough.
Where did you fly to?
I know. So flew from Aberdeen to Amsterdam to Minneapolis to Vegas. Yeah, I know. Fucked.
Was this just being frugal, or there was no flights to Vegas from anywhere?
No, there really weren't. Like that was. So I'm a silver member or whatever for like Delta, so I get some. I have like points and shit like that. And to fly Delta on the way over there, I flew Vegas to Denver to Amsterdam to Aberdeen, and on the way back I had the 3 flights also. So yeah, it was a long day of travel, and but then 2 days later,
it's a bad time of year because I guess from our side, people tend to go to Vegas in the summer, so there'll be a lot of flights during the summer to America in general, and then in the wintertime it's probably not as frequent. I was kind of saying to, I don't know who, it might have been Roderick I was saying it to, but that anybody Katie seems to have hinted that Rogue is going to be in Scotland again next year. Anybody who's coming to Aberdeen next year, you just, especially if you're coming from, it's only really relevant if you're coming from America, you have to fly into Dublin. It's the only route that makes sense for an American, because you fly into Dublin, you get a little like 40-minute flight from Dublin to Aberdeen, but when you fly back to America, you get pre-clearance for immigration in Dublin. So you skip all the queues the far side, or all the lines the far side when you get off the plane. And I was annoyed at myself for not remembering to tell more people that before Rogue this year. But next year, anybody that's going, go Dublin, Aberdeen, back to Dublin, and then skip all the lines the other side.
So I got to go Dublin. All right, I'll remember that.
Yeah, unless like maybe Trump might say, okay, we need to get those companies out of Ireland. How can we do that? What's the quickest way to do that? Get rid of pre-clearance, and then they'll all pull out. Yeah, but for now, anyway, that's the way it's working, which is, it's great. If I go to Wadapalooza or the games or anything, I just get pre-clearance this side, and then I'm like walking past the lines being like, hey, fucking idiots.
Are you going to Wadapalooza?
Yeah, I have flights booked. I don't really know what the story is, but I have flights booked and I have a hotel booked. I've never been to Miami Beach. I kind of assumed, I don't know much about Miami, obviously. The only bit I know.
I was going to say, well, you've been to Wadapalooza because I've seen you there, but yeah, you're right, because it's the new.
Yeah.
The new
the only bit I know is like basically the park, like Bayfront Park or whatever, and then like the hotels or the general, like say a 1 block vicinity of there. I didn't realize when it said, oh, it's on Miami Beach. I think I just figured there was a strip, like a strand of sand just off where it had been previously. I didn't realize Miami Beach was its whole own entity, like its own little colony.
Further you go, you go a little bit further east, and then you're at Miami Beach, like, because that was the bay. We're on the bay, and then you go past. You got to go like over a bridge, and then you'll be down at Miami Beach. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm from Miami, so I'm curious to see where it's going to be and what they're doing, and yeah, it'll be fun.
Is that where you grew up then, Miami?
I did, yeah.
Because
I was born in Miami.
It hits me sometimes when I'm talking to you that, like, man, Justin has a really fucked up accent. You're kind of weird.
It's probably like a mixture,
or like sometimes you hit like California surfer, and then other times you kind of sound Canadian, and then other times you just sound kind of like nondescript American, like just no accent. But California surfer guy tends to be where I land.
That's funny. I grew up in Miami, Miami, South Florida, like Miami, Hollywood area, and then I went to college in Philadelphia, and then I lived in New York for 20 years. And now I've been in Vegas for 4 years. So I've been all over. Yeah.
Like a patchwork quilt.
It is.
Why does Justin look 10 years younger than he has on any other podcast he's done in the last year? It's the hoodie.
Maybe. I don't know.
Has to be the hoodie.
That's hilarious.
His Paper Street is
I'm not. In fact, it's my birthday tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a
Happy
big
birthday.
One, bro. It's a fucking
why?
big one.
What number? 40?
Thank you. You're so kind. I appreciate that. Yeah. No, not 40. The next one.
Really?
Yeah, tomorrow.
Wow. You look great, man.
Yeah.
God, if I look like you do when I'm 50, I'll be pretty happy.
Appreciate that.
Is that sorry, I just want to get this comment out of the way. London airport was the worst, respectfully. Like, I mean, hurl shit at them because, like, England.
I didn't have to go to London.
They
airport.
do not know how to do transport, public, private, anything.
Funny.
They just do not know how to do it. What's your general feel then with turning 50? Then has it kind of crept up on you, or have you been anticipating this for the last couple of weeks, couple of months, being like, oh God, is everything going to change? Is this it? Am I over the hill?
No, I felt over the hill a while ago, so so this is nothing special. I think the number fucks with your head a little bit, just because, like, you still feel pretty good and feel like I could do some things, and still feel kind of in the prime, which I am. I feel like I always kind of come back to, I look at other professional sports, and generally coaches are in their prime right around this time. You know what I mean? So I feel pretty good. I think in CrossFit, obviously for a coach, I'm probably an elder statesman. I've been doing this a long time. I was saying, like, this past games was my 15th games coaching.
Wow.
At and so obviously I've been around for a while, but yeah, I still feel like I'm at the top of my game. I feel like I'm a little bit mellower there, to be perfectly honest, because me. I mean, I can get fucking crazy, at competitions. I can be a little nutty, and I feel like I've mellowed a bit, comparatively. But yeah, in general, I don't know. It's weird, I don't think about it too much. I try not to let myself think about it too much.
What about Ashley? Is she just going to trade you in for a newer model? Is that the plan, or has she?
Probably.
Yeah.
I would assume so. Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense.
she's 10 years younger than me. I think she's probably got to be thinking, oh fuck, like pretty soon I'm gonna have to trade that guy.
Yeah,
in.
but I don't know though. It must make her feel great that in any kind of comparison, she's younger. You know what I mean? Like if it, like, it must be nice waking up being like, oh wow, I'm so much younger than my husband, and I've got years left.
Yeah.
This guy said he saw you. Savannah's dog said he saw. It's not actually a dog. Said he saw you at Amsterdam Airport. There you go.
There we go.
Do you think Alex would say the same, that you've mellowed? Do you think she, like, has it been a noticeable change, or do you think it's been a more gradual kind of thing?
I don't think she would say I'm mellowed. I think she would probably be like, "What is he talking about?"
Yeah, she's like, "I need to rewind that. I misheard what he just said. I need to go back."
I don't know. Maybe. I don't. I think I have mellowed a little bit at competitions. I mean, I can still be a hard ass. I think she'll probably tell you. I mean, after Rogue, she got an earful, to be honest. And she probably would be like, no, I don't think he's mellowed at all. But I feel it. Like, I just feel like I'm a bit more balanced and tempered, like at competitions. I don't let myself like lose it quite as much. Or I think kind of get as high or as low. I still would say I'm probably one of the more emotional coaches out there, but I feel like I've mellowed a little bit.
Why did she get an earful? Did you think she left stuff on the floor or what?
Did you watch the final event?
But just like,
yeah, I mean,
like, so I've spoken to a lot of coaches and athletes, and there always tends to be, the way I've always heard it is, say if you're my coach and something happens and like an event is over, whatever, you kind of wait, and then a couple of weeks, maybe a week, you have a debrief and you're like, right, here's some things that I noticed. But it sounds like you were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like immediately afterwards.
We had a come to Jesus moment after that, man. And I think, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I think it is probably the best thing that could have possibly happened to her as far as maturation process is concerned. Because one, listen, fourth is like kissing your sister, you know what I mean? It's just not,
my
you don't want to
really
be in
ugly
fourth.
as well.
There you go. And the truth of the matter is, like, it was a scenario that, she allowed someone to take something that she should have taken.
For going out, so before the event, like when you're walking out on the floor, or when she's walking out on the floor and you're talking to her behind, is the mood, or the maybe not assumption, but obviously the aim is to get third, but is the mood like, yeah, this is within my grasp, this is fine, I can get this, I just have to do this, this, and this? Was that the kind of mindset walking out?
Well, the mindset was like, can't get a much better workout for her. She's incredible on the sandbag. She's in a great spot. It's like, go fucking take it. You know what I mean? And then you watch it back, and it was essentially just like the least urgent thing you could possibly do, and she knew it. And when she was done, but it was good because like it hurt like that she wanted to make the podium. Like prior to the event, she was like, I really want to make the fucking podium. I feel like I'm good enough now, to where I can go out there, I can make the podium. And, she was in a position to do so. And that was after we both felt like she'd given away a lot of points, even leading up to that. And when you finish a competition, your goal in a competition should be to maximize your point potential, right? Like you want to leave a competition and say, did I maximize every event? I don't want to leave points out there. And when you go back through it, we talk about, hey, we left 10 points here, we left 5 points here, we left this point. And when you go back and you see something that's within your grasp, and I think for Alex, who is just a very naturally like mellow person, like someone who, is not extremely fiery, And it's something that we've talked about where there has to be urgency in some positions. Like you have to be a killer in some positions. And for her to experience that really, that bitterness and honestly, just like the fact that like it fucking sucked, and she was, she bawled her eyes out. And while it was happening, it was essentially like, listen, good. Like you should feel this way. This is exactly how you should feel, because there was nothing that just happened that should be acceptable to you, and that may be harsh, but the truth of the matter is, like, if you want to get to that next level where you want to be mentioned with the best in the sport, like you go back and look at some of the great athletes who had like things that happened to them where if they hadn't had that happen, maybe they don't reach the heights, or they use that, like Frazier coming in second that year when Ben Smith beat him, Froning falling from the top of the rope, like Tia finishing second 2 years in a row. There are things that you can use as an athlete. I go back to, even like the main sports with Michael Jordan losing year after year after year to the Detroit Pistons, then finally getting over the hump, like there are things that you can utilize as an athlete. And I think sometimes it takes getting punched in the fucking face to really get you to be like, you know what? I'm never letting that happen again. Like that was fully in my control and I let that shit happen. And now I will never let that happen again. And I think it was an incredible like learning moment, a hard one to deal with and a bitter one to deal with. But I think at the end of the day, like I think it actually will probably be more impactful than if she had finished third. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. So we'll see. But it was a moment where right afterwards, like there was no letting it lie. Like it had to be discussed and it had to be felt in the moment, I think, to be as impactful. And what's so cool is like yesterday we had our like watch party, our Rogue watch party, which is 2 weeks later essentially, because I was sick and she went home and she had 2 weeks off. And we watched it last night, and honestly, I think it was just as painful rewatching it on the live feed, because I hadn't let myself watch it. I was too irritated, and I watched it for the first time last night. And we talked about it and we watched it, and I think she came away being just as angry and motivated to never let that shit happen again. And I think that's good. I think it's a good thing. It's good to see, because honestly, like I've never really seen that with her. Like, it's always been like, oh, I did my best. I did what I can do, Not this time. It was like, fuck, there was major regret there. And good. I think that's, if you want to be where I think she can be, and it's a process, there's a lot of things we're still working on, but I think it was important for her. And I think she learned a valuable lesson.
There's a guy, this is a sport here called hurling, right? And you basically have a stick and you kick the shit out of each other with a stick and like score points and goals and stuff. I'm simplifying, probably oversimplifying. But there's a coach that coaches that sport, and he used to be a goalkeeper. So he was having like a small little leather ball hit at him at about 120 miles an hour, multiple times. He's a psychopath, basically, right? But when he coaches a team or manages a team, he has a finite window. Like when he takes over management of a team, he's there for maybe 3 years, and you can track the trajectory of the team that he has. So they'll start off, they'll be like ragtag underdogs, pardon the pun. Then he uses like emotional, he's ultra emotional and ultra like he just exudes emotion, and he's really passionate, like crazy passionate. And he sort of rinses the team for everything that they have. So even if they're not that good, he'll get something really good out of them. And he has a lot of like almost moments with the teams. And then by year 3, it just doesn't work anymore. And the players are just like, listen, fuck off. You told me last year was the biggest thing that's ever going to happen to me. This can't be the biggest thing that's ever going to happen to me. Do you think because of the way that you coach, or maybe you coach each individual differently, depending on how they receive it and stuff, But do you think you have because you coach in that sort of way with like high emotion and high energy and stuff in those kind of passionate moments, or whatever, do you think you have a finite window that you can work with someone? Like, does it get exhaustive for them or for you or both?
I think it's a fair question. I think it's different for everybody. In the sense that I think it depends on people's personalities. And as a coach, you have to be a bit of a chameleon. Like what you say to motivate one person might break someone else down. You know what I mean? But I do think in some cases that has been the case. I think in some cases, like there has been that where I just think it worked for a while and then it didn't. But then I think in other cases, it's been, for the majority of someone's career, or it's been, no issue at all. I look at Carrie and like that was never a problem, but I think it had a lot to do with Carrie's past, like as a high level gymnast and being able to take a coach who didn't bullshit her and, basically just like gave her tough love when she needed it, but also was just incredibly truthful and like also as honest as I'm not gonna sugarcoat shit. And I think that's why it works with Alex, because I think Alex can take it. And I think, she comes from a background where she played team sports in lacrosse, and, her father, back in the day was, had her in the gym. And I think like, she's not someone, I don't have to have kid gloves on with her. And it works very well. I can think of some scenarios in the past, like especially over 15 years where like it hasn't worked, where I could see like I probably was a little bit too much for somebody, and that's okay. It's not everybody works for everybody. You know what I mean? But I think, I think one thing that has always worked for me is just like, I'm very honest. And I tend to, I think I can get the best out of people, especially on like game day and especially during competitions. I feel like that's where I kind of earned my chops. And I think honestly, like a lot of that stuff came from, team sports back in the day, the coaches that I had playing, high level athletics, and then honestly coaching in the grid league, for 3 years, which I felt like as a coach, if you couldn't get your chops up because it was just so high pressure and you had to make in-game decisions with, speed, as far as, and all those athletes at that time, if you go back and look at the rosters, like there were some sick ass athletes that were playing, like you couldn't get away with not knowing your shit. And I felt like that was a part where like I really proved to myself, that I could be successful. I mean, we won 2 championships. We lost 1 match in 3 years. It was high pressure. It was awesome. And I feel like over the years, I just kind of developed my style, and it works for some. And if it doesn't work for others, that's all right. There's a lot of other coaches out there you can go to. You know what I mean?
There are some amazing comparisons of what you look like. I want to find the first one. Fuck, I'm not going to find it. First of all, Savan keeps saying that I'm taking fake sips. I'm not. I'll start if you want me to. Here's the first one. Anyone else see Cotler as a Mennonite with that beard? That was the first one. Looks like he should be milking some cows. Then Barkley says, if Cotler ever yelled at me, I'd cry. If Cotler said he was proud of me, I'd cry. Win-win. So yeah, if he's good, he's going to cry. If he's bad, he's going to cry.
Barkley, I think that's Alex. Many moments with Alex, I think.
Jake says Cotler looks like Abraham Lincoln. if Abraham Lincoln was in Systems of a Down, which is great.
That's awesome.
And then there's one more. Oh yeah, Savan says Santa in the off season. Yeah, in a significant cut and in the off season, I'd say.
Yeah.
So do you think then if you're working with someone like Alex who's mellow, and Carrie is quite mellow as well, obviously not when she needs to be fucking passionate, she is, but as in like overall she's a very kind of calm person, and so is Alex, and then you can be the opposite of that, and then it's easier to kind of bounce off each other and you can kind of get them riled up and stuff, versus working with someone who's also hyper emotional or also hyper like you know, I don't know how you describe it, like extrovertly emotional, as in it comes out and it's, you know, it's visible or whatever. Do you think that it's harder to work with someone like that than it is someone who's your opposite then?
I think it probably harder to work with someone like that simply because it's an emotional roller coaster. I've had some athletes like that in the past, obviously, you know, and but I think that there are moments too where when you connect on that emotional level, there can be some really good work being done, you know. But I do think
Is
it
it just
can
kind
be
of finite? Is it like, it's like a
I think it
flame?
can
Like
be.
it's kind
It can
of,
be combustible, right? Like
yeah.
that's kind of the word. I think it can be combustible. But I think I've had, you know, I think I've had some very emotional athletes. I mean, I can think back, you know, when I was younger, you know, like earlier coaching days with some athletes that I can look back and be like, they were very emotional, and it was very successful at those moments. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily one way or the other per se, because I do feel like I have a good grip on what, you know, what works and what people need depending on what type of personality they have. But I think in general, when you have an emotional athlete, that there tends to be, it's probably finite in general. Like those athletes tend to switch coaches more often in general. It just happens. You know, you find that with you know, when you kind of look at some of the athletes in the history of the sport, I think that have kind of switched and been more emotional. But yeah, I don't know per se. I just think that, like, when I look at the athletes who I've coached who've been the most successful, they've tended to be a little bit less emotional. But I think that that's important too. Um, I think that's the goal, especially during a competition, is probably to try to temper the highs and lows, simply
Yeah.
because you can expend so much energy, you know, with highs and lows, emotional highs and lows. So you try to, you know, you kind of try to be here as opposed to this, just because it takes a lot more out of you, I think.
Do you think when you were working with Danielle, do you think that as you were working with her, were you like, this is probably a finite, like this level of intensity can't
I
go
never,
on forever?
honestly, I never thought that. I thought that Danielle and I would work together for the entirety of her career. And I think if you go into working with someone thinking that it's finite, then it's already a recipe for disaster. Like my goal when I worked with Danielle is the same that it was when I worked with Carrie, is the same with Alex, is the same with Ricky, is the same with, you know, whomever, um, was essentially like, my goal is to help this athlete maximize her potential and win the CrossFit Games. And I feel like we were very successful. Like if you look at when she came to me and kind of what happened, especially that first year at West Coast Classic, where she was an emotional roller coaster. You can go back and watch the videos of some of those events, and she's throwing a dumbbell, and she's, you know, like there's just things that are going on that, and she's a volatile athlete in general. Like she still has those moments, obviously. But then I go back and think about like that year at the MAC where she just went down and dominated, you know, like that year in 2022. Was it 22? Yeah, 22. And she just dominated the MAC. And I felt like we had made a major breakthrough that year with her. And she was just a killer. She like turned into a killer. She went from someone who I felt was, you know, in the gym, you know, really worried about every workout, like lived and died by workouts. When the workout went well, she was really happy. When a workout didn't go well, she was really irritated and couldn't talk to her, and she, you know, things like that. To the next year where, you know, she had a much better grip on things, and she was just a killer, you know. And you know, and then obviously there was a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes, obviously, but I think our relationship was generally very strong. And you know, I never really thought it was going to be a finite thing. I think I always thought that, you know, we would be together and be successful, and that was my goal. And you know, it didn't work out that way, but you know, she and I, it's good. Like we're very cordial now, and see her competitions, and she happens to be someone in the back that Alex, talks to, and, they're pretty friendly, and I'm happy with kind of where we're at. And I think she would say the same,
Did you watch the Rad documentary?
Yeah, I did.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was incredibly well done for what it was. I think, and I've mentioned this before, like I felt like they could have explained a little bit more and a little better the circumstances around what happened, and I felt like there could have been a little bit more. I don't want to say blame. I just think responsibility taken.
From her side, you mean?
From her side. I just think that it was. Listen, it was a you know it was a piece that obviously was portraying her in a specific light, and I don't know that it necessarily like would have worked out to kind of get into the nitty gritty of like everything that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus, I'm not sure that it's anybody's business. I never came out and talked about a lot of it, and there were things that happened, I think, on both sides that both of us probably don't feel great about, and things that probably could have been handled differently. But I think ultimately, like, she made a move, and we made a move that was best for us. She made a move, I think, that was good for her. She's obviously still very relevant in the sport, and obviously still one of the top 10 in the world. And I wish her nothing but the best. I think she's very good for the sport. I mean, she is. There's nobody like her. She is, whether you love her or whether you hate her, she's one of the more polarizing athletes, and this sport needs polarizing athletes. We need athletes that draw attention to the sport, that have character, whether you consider them a hero or a villain, like they're not fucking vanilla. You know what I mean? Like they have some color to them. And she's one of those athletes. And I think she's really good for the sport.
Have you talked to her about her leaving since she left, or no? Just being cordial? No, like deep conversation about it.
No. Maybe we will one day. I mean, I think that's I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it.
Well, she's on the other line. No, I'm joking.
I mean, I think there's some things there that we could talk about and work through that I think would be probably pretty healing for both of us, honestly.
Because you guys were in like a, from the outside looking in, it was like a father-daughter sort of relationship, or like a uncle-niece or whatever. Like there was a family feel to. There was a period of time when it was Carrie, Bethany, and Danielle, and then Alex was kind of sort of in the background a little bit, and it was a very familial vibe. And then kind of Underdogs grew a bit, the coaching staff grew a bit. Bethany left, Carrie retired, kind of sort of half hinted at coming back at one stage, but didn't. And then Alex kind of stepped forward a bit. And then, like, from your perspective, was it just like death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing? Like loads of little arguments or annoying things, or like miscommunications or button of heads and stuff? Or was there like one big thing that happened? Or was it just with the rate of growth of Underdogs and stuff that the wheels just wobbled too much, and it was just kind of, she just said, "I'll come out"?
You talking about Danielle, or just the whole situation, or
just Danielle? I'm just kind of trying to contextualize Danielle leaving around the other stuff that was going on at the same time, of like Underdogs growing and Bethany going and Carrie going, and there's a lot of change going on.
Yeah, I think there was that year where it was really like just the three of them. It was prior to us really growing and the camp expanding, and I think that especially those two kind of got used to like, it's tight knit, it's really small, like all my attention, that type of stuff. And I think that there was probably some fallout from that. But I think in general, I think like we were a young camp at that time, trying to like figure out culture, figure out like what works best. You know what I mean? And I think like sometimes when that happens, it doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And when there are changes, people maybe sometimes aren't really excited about change, And I think there were some circumstances obviously that happened there, like when Bethany had that year where she was, she got COVID, then she got hurt, and it was just hard for her to really gain any momentum. And then she was going to get married, and her husband lives in LA, and he's he works for the Lakers, and I feel like there was just a transition there that felt good to her. Again, I felt like obviously the very short time Bethany and I had together, I felt incredibly successful. She dominated that year at West Coast Classic. I felt like she was really on a good path to podium at the games that year. And then unfortunately that shit happened with COVID with her and Carrie. I think the stuff with Danielle was a little bit more, just personality clashes within the group. I don't necessarily think like as things grew that, that she was really excited about, all the other athletes that were coming in. And I just think ultimately it wasn't a great fit for what was going on at that time. And then there were some things that happened, like I said, that I think, are really just for her and I to discuss at some point in time, that I felt like we needed to make a move. And I just felt like it was getting to the point where it was affecting people and the vibe and the culture and like everyone was walking on eggshells, and it was just not at that point a healthy time. You know what I mean? And I mean, I what's that?
Savannah says Danielle should have stayed with you. Was it irreparable? Like, was it a point where, like, saying now, when you look back in hindsight, are you like, oh, I probably could have fixed that and we could have kept going? Or were you like, no, I mean, it had run its course and that's just the way it was going to end?
I think at that moment in time that it probably wasn't. However, I will say that I really enjoyed coaching Danielle. Like, Danielle, there were moments. Danielle's unlike any other athlete I've ever coached before. Like, there are moments that I can remember with Danielle. There are things that I could say to Danielle in the middle of workouts that I can't say to anybody else. Like, she's just tapping into that kind of like animal instinct that she has. That's more like me when I was an athlete, because I was also extremely emotional and volatile as an athlete. And I think there are things that we connected. There's a level we connected on that really worked. And I feel like it was cool to kind of hear her say that in some of the interviews that she did after the documentary came out, where she was just like, there were things that Cotler would say to me that then like I would expect other coaches to say. And then when they weren't saying it, I was like, well, you're not saying the shit that Cotler says. And I just think there was this vibe that we had at certain moments where like I could say shit to her and it was just, I could only say it to her. You know what I mean? Like I just knew the right time, because I could just tell that she was she was in her zone, and there was this thing that, it was really cool. Like, it's cool as a coach to be able to have that effect that you can see that you're having on somebody, to where like they're already at that level, and then you're able to motivate them, and all of a sudden you just see them going to that next level. And there was something with Danielle that it was just cool. We connected on that level. It wasn't always easy. She's very volatile, and there's times where, there would be times in the gym that you couldn't talk to her at all, because she would just lose her shit. But she, at that point in time, like, I also felt like I was mature enough to just be like, that, like, know when to like leave her alone, or know when to like look at her and be like, hey, just chill the fuck out. Like, you got to relax, and she would have her moment. She'd go outside, she'd come back in, and we go back to it. It wasn't a big deal. I always felt like she and I were in a good place. I just felt like there were some things going on in the camp, with relationships with other people, that it just didn't work out. And that's, it shit happens, man, and you have to make decisions, and you have to move on. And that's what we ended up having to do.
What if she called you tomorrow and was like, hey, I want to make a change for the next season?
Listen, she's got a great coach. Coach L is awesome. I think his personality is really great for her. He's very mellow. I think he rolls with the punches. I think he's very intelligent. And I think she's in a good spot right now. You know, I am a I'm a big believer in loyalty. I'm a big believer in you know when you've got a coach, to exhaust your options with them and do everything you can with them until if there is a time to move, then fine. But I really believe she's in a good spot. And listen, I feel like we're on a level now where she called me and she was like, hey, I'd love to come to Vegas and train with Alex for a week. Fucking awesome. You know what I mean? But like, as far as coaching and things like that, I feel like she's in a great spot and they're doing good work down there. And I would not want to rock the boat at all in that situation. That's just not the type of person I
am. Well answered. So, Alex, very mellow, very calm, maybe requires some urgency at times. Danielle, the opposite, maybe. Ricky's kind of a hard one to pin down, isn't he? Because when you're talking to him off the floor, it's like he doesn't want to waste the energy required to, like, he's really nice, really friendly, really like entertaining to speak to, and he's funny. But it's like he barely even opens his mouth when he's talking. It's like he doesn't want to waste any energy doing that. And then he goes on the floor and he just changes into a totally different person. And he's so incredibly passionate. Like, he cares so much. And he's so, that animalistic thing you're talking about when he's crossing the finish line or when he does something, or like that sprint at the end of Rogue. There's so many examples of that throughout his career. It's just these like gorilla type celebration moments or whatever. They're crazy. It's kind of probably a hard one to get right, like working with someone like him, because I feel like you could go over to him and be like, all right, you're going to do whatever. And he's just like, yeah, all right. Just like you could give nothing back, versus you could just say to him like, hey, good luck. And he'd be like, oh, I'm going to fuck it up.
He's really good about off the floor with like limiting the emotional highs and lows. But I think on the floor, he can tap into what he needs to be able to kind of pull shit out of his ass. Like, he does that all the time. It's almost like he has these almost out of body experiences, and it goes back to as far as I can remember, working with him. He'll always do something at a competition where you're just like, holy shit. Like, he has those holy shit moments, and he did it again at Rogue, with coming out of nowhere. He did it multiple times back in 22, with the bike workout, and then with the Capitol, walking up the steps where he just kind of, hugs and looks at Roman as he's walking by. And, he has these moments that are pretty amazing. Yeah, but I think in general, he's very emotionally level-headed off the floor. Doesn't let himself get too high or low. He almost looks sleepy, prior to workouts. It's hard to tell with him, because he'll say sometimes after an event, like, he'll come off and be like, "Fuck, man, I was really nervous about that, this and that." You just, like, you can't tell,
Yeah.
But I think that's a superpower, really. I think, like, not giving your competition anything to feed off of, I think, is really important, in the sense where, if, like, you don't want to have tells, right? Because people can exploit your tells. And I think he's really good. He's got a good poker face behind the scenes. He just kind of always looks in control, and even when he's not, I think he does a good job of playing that role. Yeah.
It's crazy though, even when you think of, like, I remember when he won, like, say, Wadapalooza last year, and talking to him, and then you talk to him after Chad when he had twisted his ankle or whatever, gone over on his ankle, and the emotional response is basically the same from when he wanted to lose it to, he's just like, oh yeah, it's nice to win. It's like, oh yeah, it's just shit, my ankle. There's no difference. Tone is the same, energy is the same. It's just like, fucking give me something. I don't understand what's happening inside your head. Yeah, it's crazy. He's a good guy though. When you were talking about Rogue, so when I asked you about Rogue, you talked a lot about Alex, like the whole way through that. You didn't mention Ricky a lot. Are you more, say, one-on-one involved with her because she's in Vegas? Like, is it harder to be, because he obviously has Benny over there and stuff, is it harder for you to be as, I don't know what the word is, as one-to-one related with him because he's abroad, because you see him at competitions and maybe say he was over before the games for a couple of weeks, whereas with Alex, it's like day in, day out, she's relying on you a lot. So then you're her, like, I am your coach at something like this, versus maybe being able or being allowed to afford yourself more distance with him.
I think it also stems from just being at different points in their career, like very different. Ricky's 30. Alex is 20, just turned 23. She's incredibly inexperienced. She's kind of still in that like building phase where there are these things that there's so many things that she's going to continue to mature at. And I think Ricky's at a point where there's a lot of fine tuning, you know what I mean? But there's not a lot that's going to change, for kind of where he's at. Like his superpowers are his superpowers, and the things that, that might not be superpowers are just things that like are incrementally going to get better, and they can, but they're just in slightly different phases of their career. I also think that he's also, like you said, he's just a more experienced athlete. I think between playing rugby league, between, kind of the trials and tribulations of CrossFit, they're just in different phases. I think Alex relies a lot more on me in competitions than he does. He likes to handle his own warm-ups. Like, Alex is kind of like, what am I doing, coach? Like the completely different situation, but when he was here, prepping for the games, like there's eyes on, and there's things that we can obviously improve on and things that we talk about, but I think he's got a little bit more ownership of kind of where he's at. And I think that just comes with being more mature, and comes with, being an older athlete, and, also looking realistically, right? Like Alex probably is in the prime for the next, 8-9 years of her life. And Ricky's, got a couple years left, if we're being realistic, he's 30 years old, and other than, obviously Fikowski and Vellner are kind of rewriting the books. Fikowski just retired, but kind of rewriting the books on how long you can go. But realistically, we haven't seen a lot of athletes past the age of 32 that have been in their quote unquote prime, so you get a couple years left, and so I think just different stages of their career.
Is it harder? So when he comes over for Vegas and you're there in the room with him, and you're doing, Hitler's video, you did the standard and all that kind of stuff, and you're able to see things, say things, like that. What is it, the level 2, like seeing and correcting or whatever? So you're able to do all that stuff there with him, versus then he's off in Australia and you're like on a FaceTime with him, like, hey, how'd your training go? Or hey, how was this week? Or whatever. It's a lot harder. Like, do you just completely trust that, all right, I just hope to fuck he's doing everything he's told to do, and that he's doing it the way he's supposed to do? And if something's wrong, Benny will tell me, because I don't fucking know. Versus then when he comes over, you're like, oh, this is amazing. I can actually like tangibly move him and say, hey, like straighten this up or move that or whatever.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing has been over the last 2 years, just like praying that he's going to get to competitions healthy. There have been obviously things that have happened, I don't know how it got fucking loud out there, so I don't know how crazy.
No, you're okay.
It is,
you're
but
okay.
I feel like I'm in the middle of a club right now, class going on out there. It's Jesus Christ. I don't know why anyone needs to listen to music that loud. That's how I know I'm almost 50.
Is that's 50.
That's it. There you go. I think honestly, like I kind of joked around with him when he was here. I've kind of gotten used to like when I see like a message coming through, where like I like know it's coming from him, and the first thing that comes over me is like a wave of nerves that, oh my God, what the fuck did he do now? Because I got like, hey coach, I fell off my bike and separated my shoulder.
Yeah.
Hey coach, I got hit by a car Hey, coach, I threw out my back. Hey, coach, I partially tore my pec. Hey, coach, it's like what, just one thing after another over the last 2 years that I've just been like, oh my God, like let me just read the first line. Let me make sure everything is okay, and then we can go from there. So I think it's been more about just like taking a deep breath, making sure he's healthy, making sure that we're okay, and then kind of going from there. I think that's been the toughest thing over the last 2 years is he's dealt with a lot of adversity. As far as like big injuries happening, and then obviously little injuries happening. And then we saw it at the games, obviously. With him spraining his ankle on Chad, which I felt like he was he was in third place at the time. He was in a great position, I think, to podium. And obviously these games were obviously pretty fucked. And, I think there was a lot of extenuating circumstances, but I still think, had he not fallen off the box and, gotten hurt, I think you would have seen him a lot higher on the leaderboard, which is obviously, it's a shitty situation. I mean, it sucks because he's just so talented. And, when those things happen, you have a finite number of opportunities,
Yeah.
and unfortunately in the last 2 years, you'll never get me to admit that I fully believe he wins the games in 2023. I feel like everything had come together. Like if you watched him at Wadapalooza in 2023, like the way he beat Roman and Pat and those guys, and just the confidence that he had, the way that things were coming together, the way that he had matured in being able to follow a plan. Like, we would put a plan together, and up until that point, sometimes you throw that shit out the window. And at Wadapalooza, he had maximized his points, like we talked about, and followed the plan, no matter kind of whether people had gone out hot and he had fallen behind. And he just followed the plan to a T. And I felt like we were in a place that, and then you saw what the programming was. I mean, oh my God, just every event was good. You'll never get me to admit that he wouldn't have won. But shit happens, and that's part of sports, man. That's part of sports.
You mentioned that he only has, like, logically speaking, maybe 2, maybe 3 years left. If your heart is speaking, you might say 4 or 5. Do you think when you're getting towards that stage of your career, do you get a bit antsy? Do you think? Do you get a bit like, oh, should I do something different? Should I move to Vegas? Should
Probably.
I change something? Should I, look at other programs? Should I move to a different part of Australia to train with someone else in Underdogs? Should I move to America? Like all that, to kind of go all in for the last little bit, basically.
Yeah. I think it's human nature to question and to look at things. And I also think as an athlete that the worst possible trait for an athlete is to be satisfied. I think once that happens, you're done. So I think that you're always looking for an advantage. I think you're always reevaluating. And I think that as an athlete, that doesn't necessarily mean that change is the right thing, but I think it's something that you need to consider. I think it's something you consider. And, I think sometimes, but I think in the past, we've seen people make decisions to change and it's turned out to be the wrong thing. So but I think in the moment, sometimes you make decisions that you think are right. They don't turn out to be right. Sometimes it's done out of desperation. Sometimes it's just done because you're trying to squeeze every last drop out of what you have, and I understand it. I don't fault somebody for thinking that way or doing that. I don't know if that's the case, but I certainly think as an athlete that, that asking those questions and reevaluating is something that's important for athletes to do.
There was a lot of rumors around Rogue that he was obviously with, say, Tia, Shane, Jay, and Maddie in Australia they did that where everyone thought they were going team. Everyone was like, holy fuck. And then kind of around Rogue, there was a few kind of rumors that maybe he was kind of talking to Proven and that might be something that was happening. Because usually around before Rogue would have kicked off, a lot of stuff would have changed. But I kind of feel like, as in across the ecosystem, like the athletes would have moved, coaches might have moved, whatever. Whereas this year, because as you said, the games are so fucked up, I think nobody wants to be the first one to say, you know, hey, I'm moving camp or whatever, because I don't know why, but it just seems to have delayed things. From your perspective, are you two, is it like business as usual? Wadapalooza is on the horizon. That's the next focus. I know he's supposed to SoCal, withdrew for Rogue, and then was supposed to do FitFest, and I'm assuming withdrew for Wadapalooza. Like, he's focusing on, here's the shit that I really want to do really well at. I don't have time for distractions, basically. Is that, from your perspective, the focus now is Wadapalooza with him, or have you been aware of any of those kind of rumors going around?
I mean, I obviously have heard rumors, or people have asked me questions. I mean, it was business as usual at Rogue. I think it's business as usual moving forward. I haven't heard anything else otherwise. So, I mean, I'm hoping that that's the case. I don't have any information differently, or else I would tell you.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, he had mentioned he wanted to go and do some stuff with Tia, and I was like, fucking go. Like, she's the GOAT. You know what I mean? Like, I think you should go and train. I think he and I have had a very successful relationship thus far. And I hope that we continue to have a successful relationship moving forward. I mean, nothing in performance, you know, if we look at the last few years, podium at the games, Wadapalooza wins twice, 2 podiums at Rogue, 2 top 5s at Rogue. 2 top 5s at Rogue, 2 podiums at Dubai. Like, other than him getting hurt in situations, you know, we've been incredibly successful together. So you know, I'm hoping that that'll continue to be the case. We have a great relationship. You know, he's someone I consider family, and if it changes, you know, I guess I'll find out when that happens, or if it happens, and if it does, we'll continue to roll.
When he came back first, there was a lot of mixed emotions around the sport, that Ricky was coming back and that his ban was over, and there was kind of mixed response towards you, that you were coaching him. I know some, like, you probably caught some shit and caught some strays in the process of how can you work with him, blah blah blah. But from the very beginning, you were so like patient with all of that, and you were so considered in everything that you said, and so careful with everything that you said, but like honest and vulnerable and shit too. It wasn't like scripted or anything. But with all that in mind, the fact that you kind of took a chance on him, and you, like, you know, were the one bringing him back in and helping him come back in. And I think it probably helped him a lot that it was you too, that it wasn't like, you know, if he just came back on his own, I don't know what people have been as quick to kind of move past things. But because it was kind of, people were like, well, I mean, if Cotler's okay with it, then maybe I should be okay with it too. There's an aspect of that.
Yeah.
Does it, when you hear those kind of rumors then about proving and stuff, does that hurt more then? Does it make it worse that it was someone like that, compared to, like, say, if it was Alex, or if it was someone who you kind of been working with, but not in the same, there hadn't been that really high emotional public kind of thing happening at the start?
I don't think so. I honestly, I think the one thing that people know about me, and I feel like I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and when I get involved with an athlete, to me, like, they become family. And so, like, I'm going to protect them at all costs. Like, I'm going to support them at all costs. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to put my entire being behind them. And for me, with Ricky, I took that shit personally. You know, like, when people would say shit about him, and, you know, people would talk about him, I think in a lot of ways, like, I just always felt like, you know, he served his ban. You know, being away from the sport for 4 years is a big penalty, and being able to come back and succeed it says a lot about somebody. And also, you know, about coming back and admitting it, and then also now doing it the right way. And I mean, he's had, I know for a fact, I mean, over the last few years, I mean, he's passed like minimum 8 drug tests, and you know, I just think in general, you know, he became someone who was very important to me and to my family. And I think he always will be, no matter what, he decides to do. And I think, there's a period of time that we've spent together that I think was able to resurrect his career and resurrect him as a person. And I think that's incredibly important. And I feel proud, to have been that coach that he wanted to go with after coming back. I feel proud about the work that we've done. And I hope that we'll continue to do, important stuff together. And I feel like we still have unfinished business. But I'm very proud of what we've done in my relationship with him. And I feel like, we have a special relationship, and I'm happy that he chose me, because he could have gone a lot of other places.
Dad has spoken. Ricky, Alex, and Cotler need to stay together. There you have it. Someone else then who's kind of been around and had injury woes and all that kind of stuff. Sarah, Sigma's daughter. Obviously, she's back. She's doing Fit Fest now. She seems to be doing a lot of. She's doing the Luka Jukic tour of the Middle East, doing some like mall competitions and like smaller events and stuff. Great prize money though. And she's doing it like she did. I think she did a paired thing with her boyfriend or a team of 3 or something, and a few other bits. She has Fit Fest coming up now in like 2 weeks or next weekend or in 2 weeks.
You tell me. When is that?
I think it's the weekend after next, not this weekend, the weekend after. What's her story like? Is this like a farewell tour? Is it like a victory lap? Is it like ramping back up, thinking of next season? Like what kind of standing is she in at the minute?
It's been I know she'll eventually, come out with a book or, eventually kind of tell the story of what she's dealt with. She's the most resilient person that I've ever been around and coached in the sport. The shit she's had to deal with, people would have retired 5 times. I think Sarah just wants to go out how she wants to go out, and not because, of an illness or a condition or because a doctor tells her to. I applaud her for that, because she's just tough as nails. And she also just happens to be like the most fucking genuine, awesome person. Like if you get to spend any time with her, she's exactly what you think she is. Like what you see online is what you see in person is what you get in person. I think this is like kind of a little bit of a resurrection, in the sense that she's just trying to go out on her terms. She's trying to get to the point where she's having fun again, where she's able to do something that she really loves, and where she's able to do it at a level that she believes she can, at a high level. And I think that right now she's starting to really enjoy herself again. I think her body is cooperating, and it's slow, it's slow progress, but at the same time, progress is progress. For her, it's just been this like kind of like 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards that, has just plagued her the last few years. And in a lot of ways, kind of out of her control. A lot of autoimmune stuff is just out of people's control. But I think there's light at the end of the tunnel for the first time in a while. I think she knows that like I'm there to help however I can. And in some cases that's telling her like, hey, you need to rest for a week, or you need to like not do this or that. But for the most part, like, she's just amazing. And just honestly, just being able to have that athlete coach relationship with her has been really special, just because of who she is and how special she is. And I really value it. I'm excited for her. I think this Fit Fest is really exciting for her to be kind of back in the limelight and be able to be there for the fans. She's an incredible ambassador for the sport. She's someone who I think is, kind of like you think of the old guard, right? Like she's someone who, there's not a lot of them left. And she's one of them.
There really isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think like having her there and if she can get back to even close to the level that she was, or a level where she's happy with and she's joyful, I think it's huge for the sport. So yeah, I'm not only like, I not only love coaching her, but I'm just a big fan, and I have been for a long time. And so it's fun for me, to kind of see her smile and do some of the things she hasn't been able to do the last few years. It's exciting.
Let's go. That answers that. So, Patrick Clark, you can afford more than €5. That's fucking atrocious. With the sport, you mentioned the sport. Obviously, there's a lot of changes. Surprise! So we have our different system this year. So you've got the open online semifinals to top 1%, then in-person semifinals if you so choose, or if you're not in the top 1%, and then the games, and then teams and individuals are going to be separated. Someone should have predicted that before they said it, really. With that kind of stuff, say Alex comes to you or Ricky comes to you next week and says, hey, the open is in February, registration is in January. Will Morad's doing whatever Will Morad's doing. We don't know what that looks like yet, but there's a lot of talk about it. What should I do? Should I register for the open and go for the season? I mean, a lot of athletes are going to have their mind made up. A lot of athletes, I mean, especially in Europe, the vibe seems to be like, no, I'm not doing it. So like, whatever. But I'm assuming there are going to be athletes who are like, I need to ask my coach. I need to decide what to do. And I'm guessing for most coaches, you'd rather that the athlete came to you and said, I'm not doing it or I'm doing it. So then you can just react and say, cool, let's get you ready for the open. Or cool, let's look at maybe May as your first event that you're going to do in the year or whatever. Rather than, hey, what should I do? Someone comes to you tomorrow, what do you say? If they say like, what should I do? Like, how do you guide them in that as, their coach and mentor or whatever?
Well, I think that you use the right word. I think guide, right? And assist. Like, it's their decision. I'm not going to make the decision for them. Ultimately, they have to do what's best for them and what they feel in their heart, is probably what's going to be best. Obviously, you take into consideration many things. I think you're a professional athlete. You have to take into account, obviously, some of the monetary stuff. You've got to take into account, travel. Does it work for you to be able to, depending on if a league happens, but two of those events, one's in Australia and one's in Europe and one's in the States, like, do those things work for you? I think, do you have sponsorship that's able to help you with, travel costs? Or, I think there are a lot of different things. So I do think it's important to really consider all the variables. I think I think you can make the decision in a vacuum. Like, I think it's very fluid. I think you have to really take a look at everything. And it's not my decision to make. It's my decision to guide and support. And I think that there are some athletes who are in different situations than others when it comes to making that decision. I think that there's some athletes who probably have the luxury of being able to say, I'm making X, Y, Z from sponsorship. I can decide to do this and I'll be fine. I can decide to do this and I'll be fine. Others are saying, well, fuck, I need to do this, and this because I need to be able to pay rent and make ends meet. And this is my best opportunity to make money. I don't think there's a right answer right now. I think you're going to see most athletes do both. That's just from hearing what people are saying. I think you're going to see a lot of people do both. I do think that from what I'm hearing, I do think that there's going to be an opportunity for a league. I think that it has legs. And whatever decision is made there, I'm hoping that there's some type of unification and that we don't get like competing leagues. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hoping that things will be unified because I think that's important for the sport. And then as far as CrossFit's concerned, I'm just never a big fan of anything that makes like online stages more important. I just think there's too many variables when it comes to the judging. And we saw what happened this past year with some athletes that are really good athletes. You make one mistake or, the judging is subjective to the point where like they're out for the season. And I just find it, I'm not a huge fan of that. So I don't love the in-person.
To counter that though, like you have, so say last year, with the exception of like Torian and France, nobody really gave a fuck about semifinals, like as in fan wise or engagement wise or buy-in wise. Like there wasn't, it's not like it was regionals. It's not like it was the sanctional year where you had these events popping up and people were like, oh fuck, there's an event in London, I'm going to go to that. Or, oh fuck, there's an event in like wherever, Italy, I'm going to go to that, whatever. The online stage, the judging, they seem to be kind of trying to address the judging thing with the additional course, which some will argue is a money spitter. And then the fact that the public video and stuff, like there's a lot of, they have ticked a lot of boxes that people have been asking for. But the making it online, arguably, okay, blind leaderboard, probably not ideal, but arguably that makes it a lot easier for Alex because she's totally in control of absolutely every aspect of that. As in, familiarity of the gym, knows when to get there, how to get there, has the whole place to herself if she wants it, can bring a fucking fridge in if she wants with food in it, like it's hers, like she can do whatever she wants with it, versus, I have to go to fucking Nashville and do an event there, and what if my judge is a dick? That's out of my control, just like the box step-ups were out of my control last year, whatever. And then the sanctional year had, I mean, so many flaws. Like there was just so much wrong. But there was also
the Wild West.
Yeah, but there was also some cool bits where you had these
awesome ones.
Filthy 150, Mayhem Classic, like all these amazing events that just like popped up, were unbelievable, and then just like vanished again. And you think of the opportunity that's there for some events. I think the issue that I have, and I think that other people have, is when you hear, and there's no disrespect, probably is fucking disrespectful, fuck it, I don't care. But there's a lot of people who are like, oh, right, so it's going to be Syndicate, West Coast Classic, like they're expecting those to be the semifinals. And I think what I gather from looking at the stuff they've done is they seem to be kind of heading back towards a more kind of grassroots, like the open matters, like they're kind of heading back that way, where it's more like it was, years ago, which I think people have been asking for. And like, it's funny that when they did quarterfinals and said top 25% are going off into quarterfinals, everybody just went fucking apeshit, be like, oh, it's bullshit, it doesn't mean anything anymore. And now people are complaining that quarterfinals are gone. And it's like, well, fuck off. Like, you can't bitch about it being there and then bitch about it going away. But it is, I think it's kind of the same as last year, the same as the year before, the same as the last 4 or 5 years where they made changes, where I just always think you're better off saying like, all right, I mean, I guess we'll see what this turns out like. And then you never know, they might just strike gold and hit another kind of regionals format where it's just perfect.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they stay with anything long enough to really let us find out whether it works or not. But I think for me, I don't know. I've always been kind of an advocate for athletes, and I think I'm at the point in my career now where like I'm really looking at it sports side. Like, how do we grow the sport, or how do we make the sport professional and so I think like a couple of things that I find really interesting is the idea of eventually creating like a professional league. And the idea of eventually creating something like a Drive to Survive around that, where we're really getting a ton of unbelievable reality content that is ready for TV, that goes and dives into the backstories of the athletes and can really bring it to the mainstream, because these athletes are superhuman and they do shit that's just incredible, and so few people know about it because it's so niche at the moment. So I think I'm looking at it from a slightly different perspective, because I really would like to see it kind of grow as a sport. I think the methodology is always CrossFit. Like, you want to be really good at this sport, you do the methodology. And then I think the methodology also is the kind of like, the North Star of education and changing people's lives through fitness and all that stuff. I owned an affiliate for almost 10 years. I know how important it was, to change people's lives. I think we're at a crossroads now where I see the sport kind of becoming the sport. And you don't see a lot of athletes that are really kind of doing that traditional stuff and training in boxes. They all have their own home gyms. They're all really looking at it as professionals. And I think that's probably the way that eventually it goes for it to really explode. But that's just my opinion. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong. I just think that that's kind of the camp that I fall in. And that's the way I would like to see it go. I would love to see it go the way of like the PGA Tour, the ATP, where you've got 8 to 10 events a year. You're procuring points throughout the year. You maybe have like 3 or 4 Grand Slam events or these top tier events. And then at the end of the year, you've got the FedEx champ, or you've got the driver of the year that, like Verstappen just won here in Vegas. Like you eventually get to the point where this fucking thing brings on more sponsorship. We go around the world, you get these bigger events and more sponsors, more money, more points. And it's a way for these athletes to really, become professionals. And that's just kind of the way that I, look at it and hope that it goes. And I still think that the methodology can flourish. And then I think the sport can flourish. I think right now that I'm just not sure they really know what they want to do with sport. And I just kind of feel like it's every year, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And I don't know that it just kind of seems to be treading water. And I'd love to see it not tread water. I would love to see whoever's in charge of sport be the priority. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure other people would be like, "Hey, you're fucking wrong," and that's fine. That's their opinion. I don't.
No,
that's
people,
okay.
People are never like that.
Yeah, right. It makes for healthy debate, and I think that's cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with us disagreeing. I think we've gotten now to the point where it's like, you disagree with me, like then you're like, well, you're a fucking asshole. I disagree with you. No, like that's not the way I feel at all. Like if someone disagrees with me, that's great. That's your opinion, and maybe you're right. I just happen to think that's I just personally think that's the way it needs to go.
Well, listen, man, thank you for coming on and answering so many questions that you're probably uncomfortable being asked, but I appreciate it. Tomorrow, are you free tomorrow at the same time by any chance for half an hour?
Tomorrow I have a day plan with the family, man. My wife and kids, they're taking me to going to a new barbecue spot for lunch, and then we're going to see Moana 2 for my birthday.
Oh, wow. God,
yeah.
That's a fucking day and a half. Oh, shit, your birthday. Yeah, of course you're not free tomorrow. Fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's amazing. Moana, I assume you picked that. Moana 2 and barbecue.
My 3-year-old and 4-year-old didn't pick it. That was me. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on. Happy birthday.
Thanks,
I guess we'll
always
see
good to
in
talk to
Miami,
you.
I guess.
It's been a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, man. Thank you for being in the comments as well. What day is it? Tuesday, tomorrow, debate tomorrow. That's what I was asking Justin about. If we debate tomorrow, we're going to debate the new season. But I won't take up your birthday doing that.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know who's coming on that yet, but I'll keep you posted. Svan's back tomorrow morning.
I'll ask people around the gym.
Yeah. And the spin is on tomorrow night. I was supposed to have Vellner on Thursday, but he's moved house and his Wi-Fi hasn't been set up yet, so it's next Tuesday instead. So if you're looking for that Thursday, it's on next Tuesday. Thank you.